My name is Jeff McKittrick, Kussmaul Regional Sales Manager. Today we're going to go over the charger troubleshooting, some essentials, diagnostics, and resolving common problems that you might experience when you're troubleshooting the Kussmaul chargers. First thing is, how does a charger work? Well, a charger is sending current to the batteries to maintain and to charge your batteries. It needs to be directly connected to a battery, and it will pick up also any parasitic loads. And those are loads that are on the battery that when the vehicle is turned off, things such as radios and lights, that might be actually drawing off the batteries. The charger will also stop charging when the battery is fully charged. Again, the battery must be connected to the charger so that the charger will sense that the battery voltage is low, and it will put out the correct current to recharge the batteries. So what is inside one of these chargers? You see this box, not exactly sure what it is. There's a transformer that is going to step down your line voltage. That's the voltage that's coming in from your house. It's normally 124 or 120 volts. And so the transformer will step that down so it gets to be a more manageable voltage. Then there's a rectifier that's inside this charger, and all that's going to do is convert the alternating current into a direct current that your vehicles are going to be using. You don't want to have your alternating current connecting into your direct current. That could cause some problems on your electrical system. The rectifier will also then control the voltage to the battery, the correct voltage needed for the battery. There's control circuits in there that's also telling the rectifier what kind of voltage is actually needed. So sometimes the voltage is going to be changing as the battery is charging. The control circuits are going to be changing the rectifier to the correct voltage. And the charger is going to have a current limit so that it won't be able to exceed the voltage of the battery. It won't be able to overcharge the battery or overload it. So types of problems that we see or that we come across very often, some of the easiest ones are your alternating current, your shorelines are coming in. We regularly see issues where a lot of these fire stations might have a cord reel that is attached to the ceiling of the station, and you look up and it looks like the plug is actually plugged in, but maybe over time has actually worked its way loose a little bit, and it's actually not connected. Sometimes also people get in a habit of, instead of pulling on this little plug that's Kussmaul supplies, they will just pull on the wire. Maybe the wires have actually come out of that actual plug. I've seen also where maybe a circuit breaker has been tripped. So one of the easiest things you can do, we all have cell phone chargers. Just plug in a charger, or maybe there's a radio at the station or the shop the truck's at. Plug a radio in or a shop vac just to make sure you have 120 volts. It's amazing how many times people think that there's a problem with the charger because it's not being activated, and come to find out there's just no power going into the charger. Some of the problems we see on the output generally is that the wires come disconnected. These chargers are placed in places underneath seats and compartments, sometimes not the ideal place where you might think there would be a charger. Someone might be able to kick the wire, someone throws a coat down and the wires actually come out, or break a connection. That will often happen on the outputs. And the other thing that we also see, one of the very actually common, is we'll get chargers in at Kussmaul for service, and it's amazing actually how many of those actually have metal shavings or debris actually inside the charger. So those are just some of the problems. We'll go over a couple more as we go through the presentation here of anything that pops up, things to look for when you're doing some troubleshooting. So the troubleshooting steps we're going to go over is check the charger wiring, check the AC input voltage, and also how to check the DC output voltage, how to confirm that the charger has the correct output, and also we're going to go over some charger indicators. Our first generation charger, you can see there on the terminal block, had little screws on that you would actually hold the wires in place. Over time, these chargers get vibrated in these heavy duty vehicles. People, like I said, maybe they're throwing their coats around or something hits it. Very possible that one of these has actually come loose. If you have a problem with the charger, the very first thing you want to do is just double check the connections. Make sure that your connections are secure. Look at your battery positive and your battery negative. And also look at your line input. This is your alternating current coming into the charger. And in North America, that's generally, not always, but the black is going to be the line, the white is a neutral, and the green is a ground. Double check to make sure that those are correct. If any of these are not correct and out of place, the charger won't operate properly. So now you want to, if you check the wiring and everything looks good, what you want to do is just look at the, we're going to check the input. If you have a LED, the power light is illuminated, you know that you have your 120 volts. You have your shoreline is plugged in and the charger seeing the 120 volts coming into your input. And if the light is off, you can take your handy dandy little voltmeter. You can buy these anywhere. If you don't have one, you get them at a big box store. Use the probes and double check the input. Make sure that you're actually getting 120 volt or 120 volts at the input. Again, it is possible. I've seen it where the shoreline is coming in. It might go through a Kussmaul auto eject, might just go through another plug, but then it goes into a junction box. There's power going to the junction box, but there's no power actually making it to the charger. So if you check that and you don't have any voltage at the input, just double check that wiring, the input, the wiring input. If you do have 120 volts and the LED, the power light is off, you want to double check the fuse or the circuit breaker. There's a circuit breaker right on the front, sometimes on the back, or sometimes there's a fuse on the back of the charger. You want to double check that to make sure that that is actually good. If the power light is off and you have 124 volts or 120 volts at the input, likely there's something wrong with that charger if the circuit breaker is good. So you need to send that charger into Kussmaul. These are electronic devices. They are made by humans. So it's possible that maybe there's an internal component, maybe the rectifier, maybe the transformer or some other component might have failed and it's not letting it get the proper input. If you checked your input and everything looks good, what you want to do is now check your output voltage. The battery light will be illuminated if the charger is actually seeing the battery connected to the charger. If the battery is connected and the light is off, again, take your little voltmeter, put it into the output to make sure that you're getting voltage on the output from the charger. If you do that and it's still not showing, or if you connect it and you're not seeing any voltage on the output, go to your battery and check the terminals at the battery to make sure that it is seeing the proper voltage.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes, Danny.
Show if you have the big charger there, because this is everybody to see, this is the first generation charger. So this is the original 1200. Jeff's gonna put the screen back to him here in just a second so you guys can see what we're working with. This is the first generation charger. Go ahead, Jeff. Say it. You gotta say something to bring the screen to you.
Oh, sorry about that, Danny. Yeah, here is the first generation charger that we have. You can see it's a nice big metal box, big fan on the side. Got on the terminal blocks, just the screws. That's our first generation charger. That's a charger that you've probably seen, is probably in the industry or probably in a truck 10 years or older. So that would be our first generation charger.
It has been obsoleted for many years.
Yeah, it has been obsoleted for many years, but it is actually out there in the industry. So you'll still see quite a few of these out there. If for whatever reason, if you need to contact Kussmaul about this charger and there is a problem with it, it's likely we're going to upgrade you or talk to you about your solution and find out what we can do on a replacement charger. But back to the output, checking on the output. Just so there's a fan light on the charger. It's up here on this particular one. That fan light will come on when the fan is running. The fan is going to come on when the charger is putting out approximately 8 amps or more of current, and it will turn off when it's approximately 5 amps or less. So if the fan is running, you know that there's current actually going out of the charger. But just because the fan is not running does not mean that there's a problem with the charger. It could be that it's in a float or trickle mode, and it's just putting out less than 5 amps of current. So the fan is not running because the components inside are not getting warm. Now, if the fan light is on and the fan is not running, that is a problem with the fan. And so that you need to contact Kussmaul to do some troubleshooting or possibly look at getting it repaired or replaced. And another easy thing to do just to double check the current to see what is flowing is if you go to the battery, go to the positive terminal or positive wire, take your clamp meter and put it around that. It will actually tell you what the amperage is that's flowing on from the charger to the battery. When you're doing this testing, measure and record the voltage at the charger. Also measure and record the voltage at the battery. The voltage at the battery and at the charger should be about the same, but it is possible that the voltage at the charger is just slightly higher than the voltage at the battery. But if the voltage at the charger is more than 0.75 volts, it's more than likely that you have a bad connection or the gauge wire is just too small and you're losing voltage to the battery. And the voltage should never be higher at the battery than at the charger. Another way you can actually tell if the charger is actually putting out any current is if you actually have a display. I happen to have a little display right here. If you just happen to have, many people have seen these on the side of a fire truck or an ambulance or other emergency vehicles. If that display, the bar graph on that display is fully illuminated, it's letting you know that the current that the charger is putting out is less than 1 amp. If the amperage is somewhere in between there, the display on the bar graph display, it's going to be somewhere in between there, and between a low battery and a full battery. If it is not showing anything, or it only has 1 bar on that bar graph, that's either going to indicate that the battery is not connected, or if, let's say you have a 40 amp charger, that 40 amp charger is pushing out 40 amps and doing everything it can just to try to keep those batteries charged. And it's just going to show that your batteries are low. So it's kind of something to be aware of, that sometimes these displays, that the Kussmaul display is actually not connected directly to the battery. It's actually connected to the charger, and the charger is telling you what kind of current it's flowing to display that on the display. It's not actually reading right off the battery. Not always, but that is kind of I would say kind of a rule of thumb. That's how that is.
Jeff, before you go to the next slide.
Yes. Yes.
So before Jeff goes to the next slide, I want to make sure everybody understands what we're showing here is also our troubleshooting guide that we have printed and laminated. Some of you may have seen them at some of the EBT trainings we've done. And so we'll have these available after the fact that we can send out to everyone. But one thing this troubleshooting manual has in it will be a couple pages for you to write answers down in. Because one of the things we like for you to do before you call tech support is, as you'll see on this screen right here where it says measure and record. Measure and record. We repeat that several times because we want you to write the answers down to the questions so that you're ready when you talk to tech support, that they're going to ask you questions that are in this troubleshooting guide. And if you already have the answers there, you don't have to run back to the truck and things like that. So wanted to go over that with everybody, and we'll go more about the troubleshooting guide once we get towards the end. And we do have some questions coming in that we'll address at the end of this section of the first generation charger. So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. And we'll be going over a little bit of that as well. On the first generation charger, the little, I'm not sure if you can see it. I'm trying to hold it up close so you can see that it's a tiny little terminal block for the display. There's 4 wires coming out of that. Your first wire is power. Your second wire is ground. Your third wire is it's a measure between a couple of the different pins, but it should actually be reading about half the voltage of the battery. And the fourth pin is actually a variable output of 1 to 7 volts. And that is actually, this variable output is actually what's going to show or tell the display what actually to display on the bar graph. So if you see if the charger is putting out around 1 amp or so, it's at a trickle charge, it's going to show that on the bar graph that it's going to be fully illuminated. It's going to show that the battery is fully charged. If your charger is putting out around 10 to 15 amps, it's going to display about a 3/4 of the way that the battery is charged. As the output of the charger goes up, the amperage is going up, so it's going to actually show that on the display that the battery has a lower charge. And then if, again, the charger is putting out 40 amps, it's doing everything it can just to keep up, it's just going to have one single bar on the bar graph. Now we're getting into our...
All right. Let's stop real quick. Let's pause for a second. Let me get to these. There's a couple questions to get to before we get on to the next one.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. So first, do you recommend dielectric grease on the screws and terminals?
Yes, you don't have to. It's always a good practice, though. I would recommend that.
Yeah, and we do recommend putting them on the pins on the auto eject to keep it lubricated.
Yes.
The next one is, if the vehicle is operated regularly and appears to be operating correctly, does it still need to be plugged in while parked? For example, runs a few hours a day and is parked for less than 24 hours.
That's a great question, because it's kind of a little bit hard to answer, but I understand what you're saying. So the batteries are fully charged because the apparatus has been out running. The batteries come back in, it's fully charged. If you don't have a lot of parasitic loads, you don't have radios on, lights on, the odds of the batteries draining, if you have good batteries, is very slim. Would you need it to plug it in? I would say you wouldn't need to, but probably best practice would be plug it in, because the charger is going to shut off if the batteries are full. So you're not going to hurt it by plugging it in.
Correct. Yeah, so the alternator charges that battery from when it comes back. When you grab it in, if you guys know your own stations well, so you know kind of the routes and the runs they have on a daily basis. If they have dead times where they're down for 4 or 5 hours or so, I would plug it in for that time. But if there's a busy time during the day, they're running a lot, in and out, then I wouldn't see a need for plugging it in unless you, like Jeff said, you have a very high parasitic load on the truck. A lot of handheld chargers, a lot of tick units, a lot of things that are drawing off the batteries all the time. So the next one is, will the charger charge a dead battery?
That is a phenomenal question. The older style battery or chargers, Kussmaul chargers, will not. If the battery is dead, it will not charge it. That is called dead battery charging. The older chargers need to actually see some voltage on that line before it will actually send a charge. The newer charger, our chief charger that we will be getting to, does have dead battery charging. The battery could be completely dead, and you plug in the charger, it's going to go ahead and just start sending current to the batteries.
All right, and we'll talk more about that as we go through the newer chargers, the new generation, and then the chief charger, about what new technology and things we put in those. The next one is, how does the charger know the battery is full if there is a parasitic load?
That's a good question. The the Kussmaul battery, or I'm sorry, chargers will actually are constantly checking the battery multiple times a second. I believe it's 120 times a second. Danny, you could correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it's constantly checking the battery's status. It's not going to necessarily know that there's a parasitic load unless you tell it that there's a parasitic load. And on the older style, you could not tell it. On the newer ones, you can. And it will be able to detect that. So what it would do is it will get the battery fully charged up to wherever around 12 volts, and it, as that parasitic load starts to go down, the charger would then just see that the voltage is going down and start actually putting a little bit more voltage in. On the older style, on the newer style, it will know that there is a parasitic load, and it will compensate for that.
Which means if you have a 15 amp draw on the truck, you will see a constant 15 amps of current all the time from the charger. So it'll always put in compensating for what that draw is on the parasitic load. All right, and the last one, and then we'll move on to the next one here. How often does the indicator screen reads incorrectly or goes bad?
I don't think the indicator screen actually reads incorrectly. The screens, I have seen the screens go bad before. I mean, it is a man-made product. Things have gone wrong. What I will say is probably likely is, again, this little connector, and one of the tiny little wires came off of the connector somewhere, and it's not reading correctly. Now, that's not saying that there could be a bad indicator. And if that is the case, you can contact Kussmaul. We can help maybe go through some testing and get you another indicator if that is the case, if we believe that it is a faulty indicator.
Yep.
But I think I would say most of the problems are not the indicator. It's probably the wiring, or it's actually reporting correctly, but people don't trust that that's actually correct.
Yeah, and if you've updated to a newer generation charger, you need to make sure you update the display as well to make sure you get the one that matches the new technology and the newer charger.
That is a good point. If you have a first generation charger or second generation charger, and you're getting a newer charger, and you expect that older display to work with the new charger, that might not be the case.
All right, we'll get into the new generation charger now, Jim.
Yeah, so a new generation charger, the very first thing you do, just like you do with the generation 1, double check the wiring. Make sure that everything looks good, something didn't come disconnected, there's no corrosion. Making sure that I don't know, that it doesn't look like there's any crimps or anything. I can tell you, I had an example where I had a local department contact me multiple times about the charger not working. So I went to visit them. Come to find out that someone installed a radio, and when they installed the radio, they actually needed a ground. So they took the ground off of the charger and used it for the radio. That would have been one of those things that the first thing you checked, the wiring, you would have noticed that it was missing a ground. I connected the ground, and the battery started charging, no problem. So first thing to do is check the wiring. The second thing you want to do is double check your AC input. Double check that you got good voltage coming in off of your shoreline. Again, use your voltmeter, connect it up to your input just to make sure that you actually have 124 or 120 volts. If you have your power light is illuminated, you know that you have a good 120 volts to the charger. If the power light is not on, use your voltmeter just to double check that you have correct voltage. If you have a correct voltage coming in, what you want to do is now double check your voltage coming out, your direct current coming out of your output. Use your voltmeter, double check to make sure that you have voltage coming out of the output. And on the second generation or newer generation charger, we already know that the green light will be illuminated if there's shore power applied. But the yellow status light, if it's flashing 5 times per second, so a very rapid flash, it's letting you know that it's on, but it's seeing that there's reverse polarity somewhere. So you want to double check to make sure that the wires are correct. If it's a slow flash, it's letting you know that it's working, but it doesn't sense or it doesn't see a battery. If both the lights are on, that means that it is in normal operation. If the system light is off, doesn't mean that it's bad. That also shows that it's in a normal operation. Another way to double check to make sure that the charger is flowing current is if you hear the fan. If the fan is running, you know that the charger is putting out a current. On the newer style, the fan will come on when the current is 10 amps, approximately 10 amps or higher, and it will shut off if it's approximately 5 amps or lower. You notice that this is actually coming on at 10 amps where the first generation was coming on when it's 8. So automatically, this charger is more efficient. It's creating less heat and also has a smaller fan. Just one of the differences between the newer generation and the first generation charger. And if you really want to double check to make sure that you have current flowing, you can go ahead and use your clamp meter and connect it to connect it around to the power, the positive on the battery cable to see what the flow is from the charger. Again, just like Danny said earlier, we're going to hammer this down is measure and record the voltage at the charger. Also measure and record the voltage at the battery. Again, the voltage at the battery and the charger should be closely the same, but it is possible that the voltage coming out of the charger is just slightly higher than the voltage at the battery. But if the voltage at the charger is more than 0.75 volts, then there is more than likely a problem within the wiring or a poor connection somewhere. And again, the voltage should never be higher at the battery than what it is at the charger. On our second generation or newer generation chargers, we have dip switches. You can actually make some changes to these chargers. When you get a charger from Kussmaul, all these dip switches are down. It's going to have a default setting of a lead acid battery, and it's going to be a float charge. You might be like, well, I kind of don't want a float charge, but keep in mind these batteries these chargers are checking the battery 120 times a second to see what the status is. So even though it says it's a float charge, don't think of that as, oh, that's a trickle charge. It's checking to see what that is, and it's going to change its current on whatever the state the battery's in. So you can actually change these dip switch settings if you have a different kind of battery and you want to change it from, let's say, from lead acid, you want to change it to a gel or AGM battery, you can change the dip switches. The instructions on the dip switches are right on the charger itself. So you can't miss right on top of the charger. It's telling you how to change these dip switches to not only change the kind of battery, but you can also change how it's charging if you want to do a float or a 3-step, and also what kind of parasitic loads you might be able to have. So if you have a 5 amp parasitic load, you can change the dip switch and it will compensate for that.
Yeah, real quick, I want to give everybody a little view into the difference between a float charger and a 3-step charger. 3-step charger, the reason we put this in is to give the charger adjustability. Sometimes a truck might be plugged in the morning, and if it's a volunteer station, it may not go out for a month. It may not go out for a week. And in that instance, a 3-step charger is fine, because the way a 3-step charger works is when you first plug it in, it flows in 14.7 volts for 1 hour. No matter what the battery level is, if the battery's fully charged, it still flows in that amount. That's called bulk charging. It does that for 1 hour. Then after that first hour, it will go into what's called absorption for 9 hours. And for that 9 hours, it's going to be put in 14.3 volts, no matter if the batteries are charged or not. And for that 9 hours, if the batteries are fully charged and it's putting that in there, what's it doing? It's overcharging your battery. So that's what a 3-step charger does. It doesn't go into float mode until after that 10th hour. After that 10th hour, it goes into float mode, and then the truck's fine. It's just trickling in. But if that truck goes in and out every few hours, and every few hours it comes back in and it's charged up by the alternator, and you got it in 3-step, it's going to continue to be putting in more voltage than what is needed in the 3-step stage. The float charging, if you look at all the dip switches, they're all in the down position. In the down position, it's a float charger. You just leave it that way. The charger automatically checks the battery and puts in what it needs. Don't need to do anything else. So just to give everybody a little idea about the difference between the 3-step and the float charging and why we put it into the chargers, is to give adjustability for the different things that different fire trucks do and how they work in their own stations.
Exactly, Danny. In fact, you kind of hit where I was about ready to go, where I've had people call in and they say, I think my batteries are being overcharged. The very first thing I will ask them is, you have dip switch settings on your charger? If you do, what are they set at? Because it is very likely that someone maybe not sure what they were doing, or maybe it got kicked. Who knows? Maybe those got changed somehow. And if that's the case, I just tell people, just rule of thumb, unless you know what you're doing or what kind of batteries are or how you want it to be charged, just leave them all down. Let the charger do what it's supposed to do. It has the control circuits inside of it that's going to charge the batteries the best it can, that it believes it should be done. Again, checking the charger indicator, it's still using the same little tiny terminal block with the tiny little screws, same as the first generation. First pin, first wire is power. Second pin is the ground, or second wire is ground. Third wire is measuring the distance or the voltage between the batteries and the other pins, and it should be approximately half of what the battery is, around 6 volts. And pin 4 is the variable output that's telling the display what to display on the bar graph. So now we're getting into our next generation. I got one here, our chief charger. A lot of changes have come around.
Hey, Jeff.
First thing about the chief charger.
Jeff, before we get into the chief, let's get back to some questions real quick. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
didn't want to get you in too far before we get to some questions up here. So, all right, let me get back to the questions here. Following up the question, if you need to plug the charger in if the apparatus runs on many calls, can the charger fail prematurely if they are not used often? Does it need to be exercised?
No, it doesn't need to be exercised. I would just recommend for good practice that you plug it in, because it's going to be that one time when someone doesn't plug it in and you wish it was. So, but no, you don't need to exercise or work the charger.
And it's not so much to exercise the charger as it is to check the batteries.
Yes.
The next one.
Any other questions? Okay. Sorry, Danny.
Is the indicator screen only supposed to light up when the charger is on? We have trucks that are showing battery condition all the time.
That's a great question, because not all of the indicators are connected to the charger. There are indicators that are connected to the battery. If they're connected to the battery, they're going to have power, and it's going to display the status of the charge all the time. So that is possible. Just generally, most of them are connected to the charger, but that's not the rule.
Yeah, need to check and see which model of display you have and whether it goes directly to the charger or directly to the batteries. The next one, if you have to replace a first generation charger with a new chief charger, or how much wiring change is involved?
Well, that's a good question. That kind of depends a little bit on the truck itself. But if we use a little common sense, your first generation charger doesn't have a lot of options. So you probably just have one battery bank. And if it does have a display, that will need to be changed. The new chief charger does not use the same little block, the terminal block, like the old ones. It's actually using an RJ47 or a communication kind of terminal. So that would need to be changed. And the display would need to be changed. And if the auto eject actually has a display on it, if it's a super auto eject with the deluxe cover, the deluxe cover would need to be changed. The auto eject doesn't need to be changed. The auto eject is still an auto eject, but the cover would need to be changed. But the wiring, you could use the same wires that you're using for your first generation, unless you have changed the batteries around. I would think that if it's was sufficient with the first generation, it's going to be sufficient with the new Chief series.
Yeah, the AC line is one of the biggest differences from the first generation to the second generation to the Chief. The second generation, we went with a line that comes right out of the charger. It's not hardwired, but we went back to the hardwire in the Chief, as you can see on the screen, the same way the first generation charger was. The next one, in a typical fire engine, what would be an excessive power parasitic load?
That's a good question. It depends. And you know, there's no simple answer. I don't think. But if I'm thinking, if you're getting over 20 amps or 10 amps,
would it be anything that's over what the charger output would be?
Good, Danny. If you only have a 40 amp charger and you have 40 amps of parasitic load, then that's probably a lot. You could always upgrade the charger to a more, but yeah, you don't want to have a parasitic load more than what the charger can handle. But that's kind of hard to say, because look, these apparatuses, we don't take anything off of them. We keep adding more stuff that keeps adding more, pulling more electricity. You never hear anyone saying, "Oh, we just took that off."
Right.
It just keeps adding more and more and more. I mean, if you're starting getting over 10 amps, yeah, that's that could be normal. I mean, a radio can pull 7 amps. You get laptops, you get all these handheld chargers and tools charging. Starting above 20 amps, I think you might be a little high. Yeah. But I'm not sure if that's even a correct answer on that. I don't know if you have any input on what would be high.
Yeah. So one rule of thumb that we use is how to pick out a charger, the correct charger for your truck, is we estimate first 5 amps per battery. So if you have 6 batteries on the truck, that's already 30 amps. So we need at least 30 amp charger just to charge the batteries. And then if you have, it leaves you 10 amps for parasitic loads and things like that, if those loads are on all the time. But that's the reason we also, in the Chief series you'll see coming up here on the next slides, is we took the Chief and we made it a 40 amp. We also have a 60 amp, because just like Jeff said, we never take anything off of a truck. We're always adding to it. So just picking out the right charger and testing the parasitic load. And the way to do that is, if you have all those loads on and running at the same time, put your clamp meter around the positive cable on your battery, and it'll show you what current is flowing out of those batteries, and that's what your parasitic load is. And then you can size your charger compared to that.
Yes.
I want to get to another question here from Jim. Thank you, Jim, for correcting us. The question on dielectric grease, the answer is not exactly correct. Dielectric grease is not designated to conduct electricity, as it acts as a sealant to insulate, not conduct energy. Well, we don't put it on necessarily to conduct energy, and you don't have to put it on the charger itself, but we do recommend to put some sort of lithium grease or something on the pins of the auto eject pins, so that it keeps them lubricated for plugging in. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with conducting the electrical form. But thank you for bringing that up, Jim. We appreciate that. Can you use a first generation bar graph display with a later generation charger?
Possibly, but likely not.
I think we did switch the model. I think they did switch the model, Jeff, from when we went to the new 1200s.
Okay. So easy answer is no, you can't. You need to get in contact with Kussmaul. We can work on getting you a replacement.
Yeah. And as you're going to see on the Chief charger, Jeff's getting ready to go through, none of the bar graph displays or anything work on the Chief. So we have all new stuff for the Chief charger and how we're going about it. So would the length of the power wire affect the charger? I don't know if he means
absolutely.
I don't know if he means the AC line or the line going to the battery.
AC line, not so much. Lines going to the battery, absolutely. If you have a very long run, you're going to need a higher gauge wire for those runs. And in the manual, I don't know them off the top of my head, how far, how many feet, what gauge of wire off the top of my head, but absolutely. If you're running very far, you're going to be losing some voltage just from resistance. So yes, absolutely, that doesn't make a difference.
The last question before we move on, Joseph, what are the typical auto eject failure modes? So during this here, we're doing charger troubleshooting. Not that we don't want to answer your question, but we will eventually have an auto eject class as well. But what we'll do is we'll get your name. We have you in our list. We will have someone contact you to go over that stuff with you. And if you have particular questions and stuff, or maybe we can hit it towards the end of the session here. All right, Jeff, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Danny. So, yeah, back to the Chief Charger. It's our newest generation. It's I don't know if I want to say it's replacing all the other chargers, but it can replace all the other chargers. Just about all the other chargers we have. We have a lot of advancements. Like I said before, this is a 3-bank charger, so it can actually handle 3 different banks of batteries, not just 3 batteries, 3 individual banks of batteries. And it can actually also do dual chemistry. So you can have a lead acid battery that maybe you're using to start the chassis, but your body or your auxiliary batteries are gel or lithium. You can actually connect that, and the charger will charge those different chemistries at the same time. It will change the way it's charging so that it actually will charge them both, the different chemistries at the best possible way you can charge them. Does have a 20 amp output, so you can actually hook up an auxiliary pump to that. And when I say pump, I mean a mini compressor that is used a lot of times on the 1200 series or our Pump Plus series. We had a small compressor that would keep the air brakes energized while the truck was in the station. So that does have a 20 amp output. Like I said before, we've gone away with the little tiny terminal block for the display. It's now a communication cable. One of the best things I thought we ever did also is look at that strain relief on that charger. The odds of someone kicking that or throwing something on there by mistake, no one's doing it on purpose, but I mean, someone's tossing a coat or something, that strain relief is really going to help those wires from being pulled out. And there is actually a cover that actually goes over that, so that those are not exposed. And because of that cover, it also gives a little bit better protection from getting splashing and stuff. One of the things that we see when the charger's coming in, we actually sometimes see water damage or some kind of fluid inside the charger. This cover and the way this new Chief series is, it's going to really help protect that, getting any kind of fluids inside. It's not sealed, you can't submerge it or anything it's like that, and it's not designed to be on a boat. But it can definitely help prevent any kind of fluid from getting inside the unit itself.
Right. Real quick, I got something, Jeff. So what Jeff was saying there, this charger is IP32 rated. It's not 64 rated, so it's not submersible, but it is more splash resistant than our older style chargers. This charger, as Jeff said, has taken the place of a lot of different chargers. And we've obsoleted probably 10 or 12 different SKUs of chargers in the past couple years, including the 2 chargers that we just went through, the first generation charger and the new generation 1200. Those were obsoleted in the last couple years, and the Chief has taken the place of all those. These are all in all the systems at all the OEMs across the country, so you'll start seeing more and more of them come out on new trucks. This is also what we suggest that you use to replace any failed or quit working 1200s that are in the field now. And we'll go over that a little more as we go along. And just to touch on your 3-bank statement, I want to make sure everybody understands that this charger, even though it can do 3 banks, doesn't mean it's only a 3-bank charger or a dual bank charger. It can be either or. When you add the first 2 lines in and go to a single bank of batteries, it's just a single bank charger. The minute that you put in a second line and go to a different bank, it automatically turns itself into a dual bank charger, and a triple bank charger, same thing of the 3rd line. So it's not one, it's all 3 rolled into one. It depends on which way you want to use it. So make sure that's clear to everyone there. Go ahead, Jeff.
All right, thank you, Danny. So get into the troubleshooting. The same as the other chargers, you need to check the input. Make sure you have 120 volts coming in. use your voltmeter, double check to make sure you have 120 volts. The Chief charger has a touchscreen display on the charger itself. So if that is on, you know you have 120 volts coming into the charger. If you have 120 volts coming into the charger, but the display is not on, you can check. There's a small little 10 amp fuse right by the 120 volt input. See if that fuse is good. If that fuse is good and you have 120 volts coming in, that charger needs to be sent back to Kussmaul for replacement or repair. The display, if on the display itself, now I guess I should stop myself, and the display will time out. It will go black. So just because if you don't see the display on, you might think the charger's not on. All you have to do is touch it. It is a touch screen, so it will actually come back on. So if your display is on and you're reading amperage out of one of the battery outputs, you know that you have a good connection to a battery. If your display is on and you're not reading any amperage, take your voltmeter and make sure if you have more than one, like Danny was saying, it's a 3-bank charger. You don't have to use all 3 banks. You could have 1, 2, or 3, but make sure you're checking the right one or check all 3 or all 2, whatever, to make sure that you have the correct voltage on the output. Just like before, also double check to make sure you have the right voltage coming in at the battery itself. The fans on the Chief charger are, instead of being on 100%, they are very variable. So higher the current, faster the fans will run. So again, just before, if you hear the fans running, you know the charger is flowing current. And again, just like the other chargers, the other easiest way is just to take a DC clamp meter and put it around the power cable, and it will tell you what kind of flow the charger is flowing. Just like we said before, we're hitting this again. Measure and record the voltage at the output at the charger. Measure and record the voltage at the battery. The voltage should be about the same, but if it's off by more than 0.75 volts, that the charger has more than at the output for 0.75 volts, probably means that you have a poor connection or bad or too small a wire gauge. And then again, the voltage should never be higher at the battery than what it is at the charger. And once the display is connected, you should at least see that the display will actually be showing that the reporting that the battery and that the battery is on, or I'm sorry, that the charger is on.
Right. So real quick, Jeff, go back to that.
You bet.
So as everybody sees the screen of the display there, this is the display that's on the charger. As you can see, there's only one battery icon, which means this only has 1 bank of batteries hooked to it right now. If you had a 2nd bank or a 3rd bank hooked up, you would see 3 battery icons. And that means you would be doing multiple banks of batteries. We have some questions in there with some different stuff. Go back to that one. There. About the banks and stuff. But just to make sure you understand that if you're only using a single bank of batteries, you're only going to see 1 icon on there. You should only see 1 icon. Now go to the next one. Now go to the next one. There we go. So on this display you see here, that shows all 3, but it also shows it at different stages. So the red means the battery is really low, and that's what the charger's flowing in. The yellow means it's getting full and it's going up, and then the green means it's all the way full. So this is very similar to what your bar graph is telling you on your older style chargers. But if you look at the display that's in the auto eject cover, I don't know if many of you are using the new deluxe cover or not. Instead of us using the bar graph display, we're utilizing the cover with the deluxe indicator inside it. So it gives you a bar graph. It also tells you the voltage of the batteries, and it tells you the current, the amperage load that is flowing. And whenever you have multiple banks in, the bar graph display, or the display on there, will switch from battery 1 to battery 2 to battery 3.
Yep, that's correct. Thanks, Danny. And something else real quick, just on the display itself, it will indicate if it is seeing an actual problem. If you look there at where number C on it shows where notifications, it will display and it may possibly an error message, and also there's a low red warning light or caution light. If that is on, and if you see a message like an E10 or an E04 or E04 error, that is an indication that there is something wrong with that charger, and you need to contact Kussmaul to get that replaced. It's something that's gone wrong, or something internal. It might be incorrect on the charger itself.
Yeah, and one other quick thing, where we talked about the old generation chargers that were, you had to have a certain voltage of the battery so the charger would see the battery and actually start. The new Chief charger has dead battery charging. So when you plug your auto eject in on the shoreline of the truck, this charger will automatically test the batteries and take off charging, no matter what the state of charge is on the batteries. Now, that doesn't mean your batteries are good. That just means it's going to charge. If your batteries don't come up, then you got to start testing your batteries and make sure your batteries are good that's in the truck if they're not coming up to charge.
And if you are replacing an older style charger with the new Chief charger and it has an old bar graph display, you will need to upgrade the display. This has the same bolt pattern as the bar graph display. I'm holding up the screen if you can't see it. It does have a separate, I say display, it's actually a remote control panel. It's a touch screen as well. You can actually do the changes to the charger from that remote control panel. And you can also set a password so you don't have to worry about people changing your settings. So that's often a question that comes up. Well, can you replace the 1200 series with the Chief charger? Yes, you can. The Chief charger is almost exactly the same size as the 1200. The display is going to be different. You're going to need to replace the display. And again, if it has a deluxe cover, you're going to need to replace the deluxe cover on the auto eject, but you don't need to replace the auto eject. It's just the cover. And again, that's because it is now using a communication cable versus the 4 wires going into the display.
Yeah. So on the auto eject real quick, the cover, if you look at the cover, if you haven't dealt with the new deluxe cover, the 4 screws that are in there is the same bolt pattern as the super auto eject standard cover. So it will fit on there. You just have to drill another smaller hole above that to run the line for the electronics through to plug into the charger. And a lot of this stuff, if we have more questions and stuff, we have a whole lot of questions coming in, Jeff. But there also, I suggest everyone reach out to your regional sales guy. Everybody is versed in the charger. They can go over this with you in a little more detail as far as having the charger and stuff as that as well. And we're going to get to all the questions here in just a few moments, as soon as Jeff wraps up here.
Here's just a quick display, kind of the bar graph troubleshooting guide, just kind of explaining on the charger amp output. It's showing a 40, 35, 30, 20, 25, 20. What that's showing is the amperage that the charger's putting out, and kind of just showing what it's going to do on the bar graph display. If you have 40 amps on a 40 amp charger, the current is flowing out, it's going to only illuminate one of the LEDs on the bar graph. If you only have 5 amps going out, it's going to show that it's full. And then also we also have the auto charge status center showing you the output, showing you the battery condition, and but it also shows you the voltage and the amperage. Very useful information if you're trying to do some troubleshooting. It could be right on the side of the truck.
All right, before we go there, Jeff, I'm going to get to the questions, and then we'll get to the interactive stuff. So let me scroll back down here. We got a few to get to. Have you dealt with the new type chargers from your sister company, Freedom XC2000? So I'll take this one real quick, Jeff. So everybody knows that is a inverter charger. It is from our sister company, Xantrax. We will be having another webinar just like this, and it will be all about inverter chargers. But yes, we have dealt with some of those. We do it. We sell them all the time. but we will have more information and stuff on that. If you have more questions about that product, please reach out to your regional guy, and they can help you with that.
Yep.
The next question is, do you recommend avoiding copper-clad aluminum wire to the battery? I've never heard of anyone saying not to use it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know how to answer that one off the top of my head.
We may have to get you some answers from engineering on that question.
That's a good question.
I begin seeing ferrule connectors used at the end of the connections with the new Chief chargers on new delivery units. Are they recommended to be used on the charger connection wire ends, or can the wires just be stripped and installed?
You can do both. It's nice having an end on it where it's an easy, you don't need to worry about any of the individual wires getting, if you just strip it. But either would work.
Okay. Should you isolate banks on Chief chargers when replacing early generation chargers that only had one output line? Trucks with 2 banks, 6 batteries, any disadvantages to running a single line output? Well, I'm gonna jump in here. So if your truck is running dual bank of batteries on there, you don't want to put them together, because there's a reason they have dual banks on there. So you don't want to put them together all in one single bank. That's the beauty of having the Chief charger on there, is you can run a line to each of those separate banks and run different banks of charging. So I lost track there for a second. So you don't want to take the dual banks and put that in. If that's the reason, if you want to also check and make sure that the charger that you were using, the older style charger, is a dual bank charger and not a single bank charger. Just do some research and make sure you have what you have on there. If you have if you got 6 batteries on the truck and 3's on one side of the truck and 3's on the other side of the truck, that doesn't mean you have 2 banks. That just means it depends on how they're wired up. So you got to check that out to make sure you actually have 2 banks of batteries. Is there much of a difference in the size between the first generation and the Chief charger? So start with the first gen first, and then go to the middle one, Jeff.
Yeah, the first gen, there's definitely a size difference. A lot of times it's the charger, the footprint was smaller, but the charger might have been much taller. So the first generation, there's a big difference. Between the second generation, like the 1200 series and the Chief charger, it's very, very little difference at all. The Chief charger is technically just a little bit bigger, but if you look at them side by side, they're almost exactly the same. And the Chief charger actually does come with some feet that you can put in different orientations. So you can actually use the same holes for your 1200 that you were using, that you can use on the Chief charger.
All right. Are you saying that the fuse on the new Chief is not field replaceable?
Oh, you can replace that fuse. If the screen is off and the fuse is not blown, then there's a problem there. But yeah, you can replace that little 10 amp fuse on the Chief charger. I mean, it's a really basic fuse. So yeah, you can replace that.
Yeah. Can one bank handle a full 40 or 60 amp? Yes, that's the way the charger is designed. Yes. Yep, it sure can. If you have one bank of batteries and it's a 60 amp charger, it'll all flow through that one bank.
Yes, correct.
If you're using, let's say you have 2 banks of batteries and it's a 60 amp charger, it'll share the 60 between the 2 banks but it'll make sure both of the battery banks are charged. Does the remote display for the Chief fit in the same area as the 1200 series?
Yes. It has the exact same bolt pattern, so you can take the old display out and put the new display in. It's just going to be just a hole you're going to need for the data cable.
Now, one of the things about the, before I get to the next question, one of the things about the display for the Chief Charger, the remote control panel, is it's an option. Because it's a remote control panel, it's not really a display. The display is in the auto eject cover, as we've seen on this screen right here. So you would only need the remote control panel if you want to put it somewhere on the truck. What we recommend EVTs to do is have one for their own, that all they do is plug the Cat 5 cable into the charger, and they can plug that in and do their diagnostics and stuff with the charger to see if there's anything going on.
Yes. Yep.
The unit we replaced was a Kussmaul 1500 TQ12. I don't know what that is. I think that's a sister company charger as well. And a correction on the picture that you see there is 091. It's supposed to be 091-55-266. No worries there.
Yep.
Is this event being recorded? Yes, this event's being recorded. It will also be uploaded to our YouTube page, which we will send out. The 1500 TK was an old Sensata unit, which was an old inverter charger that we used to use. So to answer that question, so you must have replaced it with a new Xantrax product. Does the Chief automatically adjust each bank to bulk, absorption, or float based on the battery bank of needs? Talk about a little bit about the adjustability in there, Jeff.
Yes, the Chief Charger will charge each bank individually. So if one bank of batteries is very low, it will charge that differently at a different bulk or absorption or float differently than the other output, so the other banks. So they are all three independent. The only thing that ties any together is bank 2 and bank 3 must have the same chemistry. But as far as charging, yeah, you can have dead batteries on bank 2, full batteries on bank 3, and batteries that are slightly full on bank 1, and the charger will know, and it's going to charge those differently.
So the other part about the Chief Charger is the adjustability of it. Where we had dip switches on the new generation 1200, in here it's touchscreen. So you can go in and you can change the charger from a float charger to a 3-step charger. You can change, if you have it in 3-step, remember I talked about how the 3-step worked in bulk, absorption, and then float. You can set, if you put it in 3-step, you can set the absorption to only be 3 hours instead of 9 hours. So it has adjustability that you can do with the charger.
Yes.
How much of a problem is it to not use the Kussmaul supplied plug for an auto eject? We seem to have them get ran over. And so real quick on the auto ejects, on the auto eject plugs, we do have a specific plug that we use. We get from a supplier that has different tensioning put in on the pin connectors. So we actually suggest and make sure you use our plug so that it works correctly. Just any standard old plug out off the shelf might be not conforming. It might not fit correctly. It might hang slow or something like that. So we really suggest that you use our plug to put on there. Thank the engineers for the same bolt patterns. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, it was an inverter charger from an ambulance. Looking forward to the next webinar. All right. Thank you, Joshua. All right. Yeah. So the other thing, so to talk about a little bit about the replacing the Chief, replacing the 1200 with a Chief. If you look at the feet that are the mounting feet that come with the Chief Charger, if you put them in a certain way, they're manageable and adjustable. The bolt pattern can be the exact same bolt pattern as the 1200. The charger itself is just slightly a little bit larger, but not very much. So there might be a little finagling to get it into certain places, but there are probably some locations that you won't be able to get it into. Can't say it will fit into every spot, but I do know that all the OEMs have engineered it into all the new trucks. So all the newer vehicles and stuff will be able to fit them all in. What is the largest size wire the Chief hold going into the batteries? I think it's 4. It'll hold a 4-gauge wire, especially with a ferrule on it.
Danny, you were talking about the Chief charger. I'm holding up here the actual feet that come with it. You can see the way that they're done. You can use those feet to replace another charger. So.
All right, so we're going to get into it real quick. I know we're over time a little bit, but we're going to get into a little interactive portion of the meeting. So if you see on the screen here, you guys should be able to click on it. Just answer the questions the best that you want. If somebody's already see, can the Chief charger take the place of the older style Chief chargers or older style chargers?
We went over that quite a bit. I think that should be.
This is attendee participation. They can click on what answer they believe. We'll give you about 30 seconds or so for everybody to get in on it. We got 3 questions to go over. All right, we'll go to the next one. So far everybody says yes. All right, that's good. Will the Chief charger fit in the same space as the older style chargers? Give everybody about 30 seconds on this one as well. This one is interactive as well. All right, we got people clicking in now. All right. So this is a tricky question because the answer is yes and the answer is no, because what we just talked about, yes, it will fit in a lot of the places where it is, and then sometimes it may not. So hopefully that answers the people that say they're not sure. And the last one, can you run a 12-volt compressor through the Chief charger like a 1200 pump plus?
Yeah, that was something that we went over real quick, but we didn't go into any detail about it. But it was an answer, or it was brought up.
All right. So the answer to this one is yes. The Chief charger has a 20 amp auxiliary versus a 15 amp on the older style chargers. It just does not say the words pump plus on it. It says it's an auxiliary port. Just like if you guys are familiar with the LPC 40s we had, they had an auxiliary port instead of saying pump plus. So those of you that are saying no or not sure, the answer is yes. You can run a 12-volt compressor from the Chief. You can actually run several other 12-volt loads through there besides a pump if you need to. All right. It's awesome. So one of the things I wanted to show you real quick about the troubleshooting guide also, these are a little out of line, but we put them at the end of on the presentation. But when you get the actual troubleshooting guide in your possession, these will be the first, these will be like page number 1 and 2 when you open the book. And they're laminated in the book so that you can take a dry erase marker. It's going to ask you questions about your troubleshooting that you did. That way, when you get ready to call tech support, if you don't figure the answer out beforehand and fix it, if you've got to call tech support, you have all the answers written down on these sheets before you call. All right. And if you want a printed copy of your troubleshooting guide, take a picture or write this email address down. This is our Western Regional guy, Ray Paul. He will be happy to ship them out to anyone, anywhere in the country, including Canada if you're on. Or we might just have Jeff deliver them to Canada.
Yep.
All right. Jeff, do you have anything else?
I don't have anything else other than at the end of this webinar, there's going to be a short survey. Please take the opportunity to fill that out. Let us know what else you would like to know so we can make these, knowing if we're doing a good job and what we might need to do to make things better for the next one.
Yep. This the next webinar will be inverter chargers. You guys will see a link coming for that. We'll send it out the same way we did for this one. This particular presentation will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel in a few days. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time today.
Appreciate it.